All right, once you sign in, go ahead and hit New. And we want to create a 3D project. Now, inside of for the project name, I'm just going to name mine A to margin underscore final project. Now, for your personal games, you'd probably come up with something much cooler. And for the location, click these three dots. We want to go to this PC, and then we want to go to the C drive. And then find somewhere where it says workspace. It's usually the last folder. Now within this workspace, we're just going to hit select folder, and it's going to create a folder called A to margin final project in workspace. Now your folder should not be A to margin, it should be your name, your first initial last name final project. And then go ahead and hit create. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we don't necessarily have to download the latest version. Unity is amazing at releasing updates all the time, but the problem with it is it's kind of hard to stay on top of all of it. So we want to install a couple packages. One of them is called Pro Builder. It was actually Gabriel Williams, an ex-student of mine, created this package, and now he works for Unity. I'll make sure to bring in his photo that I took with him at GDC last year. It was kind of a huge honor that and then he was like, "Oh, you kind of talk." I'm like, "You know what, dude? You don't have to be nice." But it was cool. So we're gonna go to Window, and we're going to go to Package Manager. This is where you install all of the custom packages that come with Unity. And so instead of including everything in the software itself, this keeps it sort of lightweight. All right, so now that we have the Package Manager open, guys, scroll down here and look for something called Pro Builder. Now, Pro Builder, for programmers, designers, artists, it ends up becoming your second favorite tool to whatever your favorite application is. So for programmers, they probably love Visual Studio. For audio developers, it's whatever, what do they call it, DAW or whatever, favorite development audio tool you want to use. And the reason for this is Pro Builder lets you gray box or quickly build out entire objects, environments, or little characters that you can use for prototyping until you get the actual model. So go ahead and hit Pro Builder and hit install. All right, so sometimes it takes a while depending on where you're at. So once it's installed, you'll see that it has all these support packages. We don't need any of those right now. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now the default layout that I like the most is go up to Layout and do 2x3. And that's up here in the corner here. All right, so what we want to do is we're going to play around in the Pro Builder window and learn a little bit how you can model and build levels and all that cool stuff using Pro Builder. So go to Tools and click on Pro Builder. And then I want you to go to Pro Builder window. And that opens up this nifty tool here. We're going to sort of focus on, in this class, the material editor, the shape window, and the UV editor, okay? So the first thing I want to do is sort of create a ground for my character to walk on. So I'm going to click on, see this new shape here? I'm going to click on the plus sign next to it. And that opens up my shape tool. And so you'll notice that there's this really cool blue cube in the center. If I click on this drop down here, you'll notice there's all these other tools, right? There's an arch if I want to build an archway. And if I hit F, I can focus on that. An arch, a sprite, a prism, all this cool stuff. Go ahead and click on plane. And then hit build. The build button. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit F to focus. And I want to close this shape tool. And we're going to talk a little bit about the, and go ahead and shut Pro Builder too, the Unity interface, okay? Now notice there's something called a hierarchy here. Hierarchy is everything that's inside of our scene. So you can see there's a main camera, there's a directional light, and there's a plane. These are the three things that are in our scene right now. Anytime we create something new, it'll appear here. To the right is our project. Project, you can think of it as an actual folder where we're going to store things. So inside of this, you can see there's all these extra files and folders that you don't see in our scene. They're just sort of backups that we can drag in, okay, for like later use. The inspector is what tells us about the thing that we have in our scene. So for example, if you click on plane and you look in the inspector, it tells you the current position that it's located in and all these different attributes about our plane. Okay. Now, these two windows here, our scene window and our game window. Our scene window is where we work. We build our game, our walls, we drag our characters in. Our game window is whatever our camera's looking at or whatever the player is going to see. So if I select my main camera here, go ahead and click on that, and I move it left and right by clicking on one of these arrows, you'll notice that the game window on the bottom updates as well. Do you guys see that? I can move the camera up and down. I can also rotate it by clicking on the next option up here, and I can rotate that down or up or sideways. Now, if I want to navigate around my scene window, just like in Maya, I can scroll my wheel in and out, and I could zoom in and out like this, just by scrolling my wheel in and out. If I want to pan, just like in Maya, I can click my middle wheel in and I can pan around. You probably guessed it. The way that we can rotate is what? We Alt and left click, just like in Maya. And again, if we want to focus on something, we press F, okay? Do is we want to start thinking about the house that we're going to build, okay? So in here, we're going to go to File, New, and same sort of setup as before. We're going to go to Film Video, and we're just going to leave it at 1920 by 1080, and then we're just going to hit Create. Now, part of your in-class project is to create your own later. So for now, we're going to create a generic, just sort of bedroom scene. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control and H to remove those blue lines. And if your cursor, when I go ahead and hit B for brush, if you don't see a circle like this that can go bigger and smaller when you hit your brackets, and you see a target reticle like this, you have to hit the caps lock key, and that brings up your brush. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is create a new layer. So down at the bottom here, I'm going to click on Layers to expand that, and then I can either hit Control Shift N, or I can click this button here to make a new layer, or I can hit Control Shift N. So either one of those. And all I'm going to do is I will select like a darker gray. I'm just going to draw out the frame. So one way of creating straight lines with the brush is to click once, then hold Shift and click again. So I'm just creating the frame or the walls of my room. Now, what are some things that a bedroom essentially has that we need? Bed, there we go. So I'm just going to draw a box that represents it and a pillow. So any objects I think I want in my scene. What's that? What else would, maybe two dressers here? Yeah, so there we go. We'll put these in here. Maybe we'll put a TV on the wall here. And because it's nebulous, I'm just going to write TV and then draw a line. Maybe there's a game console, so I'll write GC. And normally you'd create a legend for this, but since it's just me, I'm going to hopefully rely on my memory. Maybe a couple controllers. So these are all things I'm going to want to model in my scene. All right, maybe I have a ceiling fan on the roof. So I'm going to go ahead and draw sort of this ceiling fan. Maybe there's a rug at the end of the bed like this. And I'll put a computer desk maybe over here with a computer on it. And then let's make this our door. So once we have our overhead map, normally this would be accompanied by concept art. Like you'd have an artist who would draw it in a 3D view. We could take a look at some good concept art. Like if we look at bedroom concept art, you'd get an overhead map and some sort of concept art like this. This is probably a better example. And so the modeler would go in and model from this. Okay. So back in Photoshop, do File, Save As. And then on your desktop, and remember to delete this later, we're just going to make a JPEG and we're going to call this bedroom underscore overhead map. And then I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So once it's saved as a JPEG, I want to jump back into Unity. Remember what I told you, our storage location for our project is in the project tab. So you see where it says assets here? I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to create. I'm going to make a new folder and I'm going to call it models. And then I'm going to go inside of this folder. And I'm going to right click, I'm going to create another folder and I'm going to call it bedroom. And then I'm going to go inside of that folder. And you'll notice you start to get a breadcrumb of folders in here. So inside this bedroom folder, I'm going to right click, I'm going to create another folder, and I'm going to call this ref for references. Now let's right click on this ref folder and do import new asset. I'm going to navigate to my desktop and I'm going to find my bedroom overhead map and I'm going to hit import. And so that'll import that image into my scene. Now what's interesting is this. If I right click in here and I go show in Explorer, notice that it's A2Margin final project, assets, models, bedrooms, and it's in a reference folder. So what it does is it makes a copy of it. This copy is different than the one on the desktop. So by bringing it in here, it's actually in a physical location, which is that location that we had in our computer. Okay. All right. So we know how to make objects and bring them in our scene. The way we delete them is in our hierarchy, select your plane and hit delete. Hit the delete key. Now we created an object from ProBuilder, but we also have some default 3D models that come with Unity. So in here, right click, go to 3D object and make a plane. Another way of doing that is go to game object, 3D object, and make a plane. Now we need to create a material that we can use to drag on top of this to attach our reference image. So, and remember, if we want to bring in any other types of objects for testing, you can go to 3D object. That's where we created our plane, but we can create any of this other stuff. But for now, let's go ahead. So within our assets, models, bedroom, reference folder, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to create material. And for the material name, I'm going to name it bedroom ref. So once this is created, you'll see something that says albedo. That's sort of the game term for color map. So we're going to drag this texture into the albedo section here. And you'll notice this will change. And the next thing I want to do, so once I drag this into here, is I want to select my material itself and drag it on my plane. And what you'll notice is we now get this thing. The problem is it's squished. So we can manually adjust this so that it fits our sort of our room design from Photoshop. Okay. So notice that we had a move tool here that lets us move our plane. We also have a rotation tool and we have a scale tool. So using our scale tool, I'm just going to scale this out a little bit on the width and the height. So something like this. Until I think that the image feels pretty good to use as a reference for modeling. And so the scale tool is this guy right here, or you can hit R, and that's how you can bring up your scale tool. All right, so what we want to do now is we're going to save this scene as bedroom scene. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and you'll see that it takes you to a scenes folder here. I'm going to name it bedroom, and I'm going to hit save. Now we did a substantial amount of work and we want to upload this to the Unity Collaborate server so that you can work on it from home. You can work on it anywhere. And so I'm going to show you guys after this, we're going to delete the project and then pull it down from the server. So first we have to go to Collaborate and then hit Start Now. And then it's going to ask you, after you hit Collab and Start Now, you'll see it's going to bring up the Services tab here. It says Create a Unique Project ID. Click on Select Organization and then select your name. All right, so if you see this, go ahead and hit Create. It'll create the profile. Now when you click on Collab, you can click Start Now again. And after it's done prepping, you should see a box where you could type in what you did. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in, oops, it looks like I clicked Publish by accident. Here, I'm going to make another change so we can adjust that. There we go. So now in here I can write added bedroom level and overhead map. Now, what we can do is we can actually share this project with other people and they can work on it at the same time. And we're going to do that in like another lesson. So I'm going to hit publish now. And so that's it for this one.